Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. Today is a sad day on the Fat Farm, but also a happy day. However you want to look at it. I'm doing something fun, so that makes it happy. Sad part is I'm winterizing my boat. I want to walk you guys through step by step how I winterize the boat. If you guys follow these steps, you will have success year over year with your boat. If you take nothing away from this video, if you decide to click away from this video right now, I beg you to hold on for 15 more seconds. If you do only one winterization step and one only, is get the water out of your engine and get antifreeze in your engine. That's my 15-second tip. If you do nothing else, do that. Everything else on your boat will survive for up to 6 months with no issues, typically. You may have a dead battery. You may have spoiled fuel. You may have a carburetor that needs to be rebuilt, but you cannot, and absolutely cannot, inexpensively replace a cracked motor block because you did not get the water out of your motor. So, with that being said, let's get started on the steps that I'm going to take to winterize my boat, which is, first of all, let's get all the stuff we don't need in the boat out of the boat. Fishing poles, flashlights, extra tackle, life jackets, and all that extra stuff you don't need it out there in the cold. If you got a place inside that's nice and warm, like a basement that you can store this in for the winter, that's what I would suggest you do. I'll get rid of my hardware, my fish finders and all that stuff. That'll all be stored away as well. No sense in letting it sit out in sub-zero conditions for any length of time. With that being said, let's get started. Let's unload the front of the boat and disconnect the front batteries and haul them inside. Alright folks, this is all the garbage I had in my boat. So it's cleaned out. It'll go in the basement, be stored in the wintertime in there. The only thing that probably won't be stored in the wintertime is this upper chair piece. I'll probably stick that back in the boat after I vacuum it out. But we're ready to go winterize the motor now. And I'll deal with this after a little while. So let's go do that. Let's get winterization going. Alright folks, I took a quick snapshot of this just to get so next summer or next spring, because it's a long winter, so you remember how to hook things back together. The other thing I'm going to do, since on my setup here I've got multiple wires going to each terminal, and I want to keep them grouped this way because this worked well for me this summer, is I'm going to take each terminal here, put it on a little nut and a bolt here, so I can keep these two negatives connected together. Oh, that's tight. Let's do the other negative first. Just remember, if you always do negatives first, nothing can ever get to ground and cause a problem. I see a little oxidation going on here on these terminals. Alright, first and foremost, I'm not sponsored by any of these folks here, but if you do want to sponsor me, I'll take cash. Anyway, I've got the products laid out here that we're going to use to winterize. I've got STA-BIL. We're going to put that in the gas tank first. On a full tank of gas, and then we're going to start the motor and warm it up. And that way it gets stable throughout the carburetor and all the fuel system. Then while it's warmed up, then we're going to use a STA-BIL fogging oil. We're going to fog down the carburetor. You'll see me do that until I kill the motor. That lubricates the top end of the motor completely and won't allow any rust or anything to develop in the top end of your motor. Then we're going to change the oil. We're going to suck all the oil out of the tank. Stay put, boy. With some fresh Mobil 1 full synthetic oil with my Mobil 1 oil filter. And that way it'll be ready to go next spring. Lastly, once the engine's cooled down, we're going to change out the spark plugs. Gap them and make sure everything's in there good, and that way it's ready to start up next spring. The very last thing I'm going to do then is I'll run water. This antifreeze I'll dump through all the through the entire engine block, through the hoses that I'll disconnect. I'm not going to discard any of them, I promise. But I'll show you dumping that antifreeze down through the hoses, and we'll go from there. And I'll show you what you want to look for while you're dumping the oil. Not oil, antifreeze. Now this stuff is the first time I've seen it this year. I've got it at, not a shameless plug, Menards. If you want to sponsor me, you can. 75 degrees below zero. And the only reason I say I like this is because last year we had a lot of days that were 30 degrees below zero for days on end, and the minus 50 stuff made me nervous. This way I've got a lot of room for error there. All right, and this container is just an empty container that I'm gonna use to pump the oil into, so I can see how much oil I'm taking out of my motor to make sure I'm getting it all. So it's always nice to have an empty one of these jokers laying around. With that being said, let's fire that motor up and get it warmed up. First thing we're going to do, stable in the gas. Mix according to the instructions on the bottle. But always turn the water on. Like that. Now we're going to fog the motor. All right, next thing you do is change the oil while everything's good and hot. Okay folks, and let's not forget about old Pipsqueak here. Put the water to her. We've got stable in the gas. Let's fire it up. Alright guys, remember when I was saying if you don't do anything else to this boat, get rid of the water? Here's how you do it. There's usually a thermostat block up here that has hoses hooked to it. This is the one that comes from the stern drive up and feeds into here and pumps throughout. So I'm going to fill this full here until I see pink water come out here, I believe, and you'll see pink water come out the back there. So you see we got pink pouring out here. I'm going to shut this down for a sec. Let's swallow that gallon fast. Now I've got pink coming out of this hose hole. Pure pink. We're good there. Now, the exhaust manifold hose, I want to run pink through there. We should see it come out draining on the bottom of the... See anything coming out? Okay folks, I just wanted to show you something here. Here's a little brass plug that's normally in the bottom of your exhaust manifold here that plugs the hole in the bottom. You can see I've got it coming out here now. I actually had to take a small drill bit like this and just kind of by hand just work it up through there and wiggle it around, because it's on the bottom. It gets a lot of crustaceans, a lot of sediment in there, and it won't allow you to drain it. So I broke that free, and all of a sudden she let the fluid come out. I'll show you here. As I pour it in here, you can see it pouring out there, which is what you want to see, pure pink. A little bit more in here, then I'll go to this comes from the outdrive, then I'll go to that hose. All right, we got paint coming out everywhere. Now we're gonna go ahead and open up this block again. There's no sense in letting it sit in there all winter. Well, folks, that's pretty much the long and the short of it for winterizing your boat. I didn't go into great details on a lot of different aspects of it, but there's enough information there to guide you through winterizing your boat properly and making sure you get all your water out of the block. Like I said, that's first and foremost. As you can see there, we started off with warming the motor up, firing it up and warming it up first, getting it up to temperature, fogging the motor with the fogging spray from STA-BIL that I used till it killed the motor. That lubricates the top end. Then I put an oil pump in there to pump the oil out of the crankcase. I put new oil in. I didn't show that, but I put new oil in the crankcase and a new oil filter as well. Then I also changed the spark plugs. I gapped them to, these particular plugs are gapped at 35 thousandths. So I gapped them at 35 thousandths, put 4 new spark plugs in there. The next thing I did was put the antifreeze in the hoses. So you can see I took all 3 hoses away from the thermostat block. I dumped water down the big hose, which fills the block up and flushes it through the block. I opened up the drain hole on the side of the block. This particular motor only has one drain hole on the right side, which would be the passenger side, opposite of the driver's side, however you want to look at it. The side with the exhaust manifold on it. On a V8, there's usually one on each side, like the one I have on the one side on this one. So anyway, pour water through it, make sure nothing but pink's coming out, that you flush all the clear lake water out, because that's what you have in it last typically was lake water or your water from your spigot running through your muffs. Get all that cleared out. The other hose I filled up that was on the exhaust manifold side is actually the exhaust manifold coolant running through there. Flush that out. You saw how I took a pick or a drill bit and picked out the sediment that was in the bottom of that drain plug. Broke that loose, got that so it was draining and cleaned out. Then I dumped water down the hose that comes from the back of the stern drive, which has your outdrive pump, water pumps in there that pumps water up into your engine. Back flushed coolant through there. Once you got all that done, put all your hoses back on, tighten your clamps back down. The other thing I didn't show is and if you watch my next video where I actually wash my boat, I tipped the boat up. I kicked the outdrive all the way up, and my boat with all the batteries out of the front and everything, it gets pretty light on the front, so I can actually tip it up and let it sit there. That does 2 things for me. It lets me clean the underside of my boat easier before I put it away, but it also drains all the liquid out of the back of the boat. Every bit of the liquid back there. Now, all the liquid that I have back there, because of the way I spilled and flushed and all that, I have antifreeze in the bottom of my boat, which is better than water. Water can get in between things, freeze, and spread it apart and start breaking rivets and doing all kinds of really nasty stuff to your boat. So you want to get all the water out. The nice thing is when I tipped it up like that, all I had left in there was antifreeze. Flushed out the antifreeze. Anything antifreeze won't freeze, so it won't do the damage. So the nice thing is I'll lay it back down and I'll store it with it laying flat. So anyway, that's a quick recap on everything I did there. The last but not least thing I'll do which I haven't shown you. I have other videos that show how to do it, which is change out the outdrive oil. I'll do that on both the 9.9 kicker motor and my outdrive. I like to use AMSOIL marine gear lube, which is has its own benefits. You can read about it on the bottom, on the bottle. So that's what I got left to do. The outdrive oils, or the gearbox oils, pull the battery out, vacuum the interior, put my tarp on it, park it. I'm done for the winter. One thing I will do probably either early spring or maybe this fall, if I still got some good weather, is I'm going to repack my wheel bearings on the trailer as well. So new repacked wheel bearings, and I'm ready to go next spring, 110%. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. Like I said, winterization is a pretty important thing. My boat will, like it did this past spring, I will put the muffs on it. I'll put the coals to it, start it up, and she'll fire up and run like a champ. And I'll be on the lake 20 minutes later or an hour later, depending on which lake I go to, and I'll be fishing. So a little preparation in the fall makes for a great spring. So folks, get out there and do something fun. I'll catch you on my next video. Michael out.